Good afternoon, small selected guests, and Mr. Martin, thank you for coming, and I'm glad that you're able to bring some guests with you, and it's nice to meet your wife, and I'm glad that you can make time for us today, and that the weather cooperated, that we could do this outside. So
I knew the ATA would pull that off.
well, you know, we've got, being, you know, big union bosses, we've got some pull. So I have some prepared comments that I'm going to read on behalf of the association. So as president of the Alberta Teachers Association, I'm very pleased and honored to present the Public Education Award to Ray Martin. The association's, excuse me, the association's Public Education Award is offered occasionally to an individual or group who's an outstanding support to public education in Alberta other than through teaching. And without a doubt, this describes the career of Ray Martin. Ray Martin started his schooling in a one-room school in Dahlia, Alberta. He's often remarked that it was there that he internalized the values that would guide him through more than 45 years of political activism. His childhood is full of friends, sports, and great experiences, but he readily admits that school was not his forte. He has described himself as being a bit of a lazy student, who gave enough effort to pass, but not much more. But he also noted that although he got along with his teachers, he was not a perfect student, and even received the strap on occasion. And I had to look that up because I never know what that was. So. Despite this, by the end of grade 12, Ray had decided to become a physical education teacher, mostly due to his love of sports and of coaching. Ray spent a year between high school and university working for the Alberta Department of Highways, working on road crews throughout the province. It was this experience that laid some of the groundwork for Ray's defense of public sector workers and his disdain for the ideas of privatization and deregulation that are the hallmarks of successive conservative governments in Alberta. After getting his B. Ed from the University of Alberta, Ray began his teaching career. Over the years, he taught at high schools in Calgary and Sherwood Park. At one point, coaching basketball and wrestling, but not at the same time, honestly.
Yeah.
Even mentoring a young Bret Hart, the Hitman Hart, a 7-time world wrestling champ. Later, Ray obtained a Master's of Education from the University of Calgary. By the early 1980s, Ray was becoming disillusioned with the rhetoric and policies of conservative government in Alberta. Unlike most who just complain about politics, Ray decided to do something about it. In 1982, Ray ran as a New Democrat in the provincial election and won. He and Grant Notley were the only two members of the New Democrats elected that year. After the tragic death of Grant Notley in a plane crash in 1984, Ray became the party leader. Martin led the party to, and what was then, an astonishing 16 seats in the 1986 provincial election, becoming the leader of the official opposition in the legislature. And to prove it was not a fluke, the NDP captured 16 seats again in the 1989 election. However, this brief time as the official opposition came to a crushing end in 1993 when none of the NDP candidates were elected. In 1994, Ray left provincial politics and served 2 terms as the Edmonton Public School trustee. But the lure of provincial politics was strong, and he returned to the legislature in 2004. It was during his second tenure in provincial politics that Ray became a champion of public education, often sparring with the Minister of Education as he advocated for teachers and continually held the minister's feet to the fire regarding the teachers' unfunded pension liability. And as a teacher, I thank you for that especially. Ray was especially known for his fierce stance on the need for a full-day kindergarten for all students who needed it, and advocating for funding for vulnerable children and families to overcome the challenges of poverty and the lack of opportunities that often accompany poverty. This brief speech cannot totally capture the dedication to teachers and students exhibited by Mr. Martin over his long and illustrious career. He truly exemplifies the adage, once a teacher, always a teacher. Even in retirement, he continues to advocate for public education, often writing op-eds for the need to properly fund education and to support teachers. Ray, on behalf of the teachers of Alberta, I want to thank you for your tireless efforts. You've truly made a difference to the lives of thousands of teachers in Alberta. And with that, we'll present you with this award by past President Greg Jeffrey. And
Oh,
we'll do that. I'll hold the papers here as well. Get some photos.
Thank you.
There you go. I'll hang on to this for you.
Okay.
If you want to say a few words, that
Sure.
would be great. I can pull that over.
it's not like me wanting to say a few words, but I want to thank the ATA, obviously, but I'll come to the real thank you in a bit. And I just want to thank my huge throng of supporters here. My wife, Evelyn David, who tries to dress me and get me to places on time. And Fred Hines, who was the principal of Misquachee when I was a trustee. And I spent a lot of time over there because Fred, you know Fred, he demanded that you be at the function. So I really enjoyed my time, and thank you, Fred, for all the work that you did in Misquachee and the work you're now doing with TELUS. And we know this person, don't we? Sarah Hoffman, who's the education critic, but formerly in the government. But Sarah, especially, the last time I ran for the school board is because Sarah was chair of the board, and she decided that it was time for me to run again. So she put the pressure on to run and for the public school board. And I won, and she was still the chair, but then halfway through, we know what happened. She left me. But but I want to thank Sarah. I know from a very busy schedule to be here also. Now, I want to accept this award and why it's so important to me. Education is more than most people know. There's an economic cause to it, that if we educate people well and that the economy will benefit. And that's certainly true. You know, what they call the old 3 R's when I was going through reading, writing, and arithmetic. But what struck me, and especially because of the schools that I represented, was how important teachers were and their helpers, teachers' aides, to young students, especially young students coming through that came from some pretty tough backgrounds. For instance, in Edmonton Public, which I know and to be true across the province, Edmonton Public, almost 30% of the students in Edmonton Public are Indigenous or ELL, English language learners. And education is more than just the 3 R's to them, that because of teachers, the work that they do, those kids will have a chance. If it wasn't for the teachers and teacher aides and all the rest of it, I know where these kids will end up at. And that's why I was so pleased and proud. And the principals went out of their way when I was a trustee to invite you to the school and to take you around to the classrooms and show you what was going on. And that, to me, while obviously what I call the 3 R's is important, but just as importantly is the social impact. Public education is also the greatest social initiative that you can make. So both from a social perspective and an economic perspective, public education is where it's at. And so I want to thank the ATA for their support, and to thank all the teachers and people that work out there in the schools. As I say, I spent a lot of time in my ward, which was, you know, Beverly and Norwood and that area. And I just wanted to show a little picture, if I may, of what this means to me. I'll show you there first.
Oh, nice.
And then here. That, to me, there's the future of education. There's the future of of young students coming up. They are the future. And this is what I appreciated so much when the principals that took the time to invite me to their schools and show me what was going on, take pictures where they needed to, and the rest of it. But the marvelous work that the teachers and principals and people, the other members of the ATA do is unbelievable. Can you imagine what it would be like if we didn't have those teachers and principals and people working with these kids? Imagine where those kids are going to end up. So this is why this award means so much to me. It would mean a lot anyhow, but to me this is the future of these kids. And I thank the ATA for this award. I thank the ATA for all you do in standing up for the hardworking teachers and principals in the school. You know, your work is so appreciated. And if I may say so, anytime you need me, please feel free to call, because I so strongly believe in what the ATA is doing, and also what the work that people on the ground are doing. These kids are important. They're very important, and they need all the help they can get, and they're getting it from the ATA members. Thank you very much.